Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome. We are waiting to people to join. Please write in the chat. Meanwhile, we are waiting. Where are you joining us from? What time of the day is it today for you? Okay, I can see people. Okay, I can see just Zagreb right now. Please introduce yourselves in the chat, right? Where are you joining us from? Okay, Amsterdam. Okay, it's going on Portugal, Riga, Canada. As the US, from Hungary, from Norway, evening. Good evening, Eleanor. From Glasgow. Beautiful. From New York City, Australia. Oh my God, what time is it for you in Australia? Japan, Denmark, London, Israel, Chicago. Beautiful. From India, from Belarus, Georgia. Hello, everyone. Welcome. So we are waiting for people to join, and welcome to Mindvalley's Love Week 2023. Please show your love in the chat. We hope that this Love Week was beautiful for you. Today's workshop topic is Love for Yourself is the beginning of a lifelong romance. And we are having today our beautiful host, Kristina Mänd-Lakhiani. Let me introduce you to Kristina for those of you who are new to Mindvalley. Kristina is actually the co-founder of Mindvalley. She's an entrepreneur, she's international speaker, artist, and philanthropist. Kristina is also the author of 4 Mindvalley online programs. Actually, the 4th one is just about to come out. And her online programs have touched the lives of tens of thousands of students. And they contain knowledge of her 20 years in personal growth industry. So you can imagine how much interesting things are there in Kristina's programs. But Kristina is also the author, and her book Becoming Blossom is coming out in June. So I am putting all the links on Kristina in the chat. So today we will have 1 hour with Kristina to talk about self-love. Also, we will have the Q&A session at the end of this call. So please do put your questions in the Q&A box. Don't forget to upvote for the best questions, because the most upvoted questions will be answered at the end. And please welcome Kristina. Kristina, the stage is yours. Hello.
Hey, Marta, and thank you for your very kind introduction. It's kind of odd to be in this system, but being a guest, because for those of you who are with Mindvalley for a while, maybe you know that I do honest conversations also on Zoom, and very similar to that, but I'm usually the host and somebody else is the guest. So it's very exciting. But thank you, Marta, for this kind introduction. Thank you, everybody who joined us and who's still joining. I have to confess, if you do not know me, then you wouldn't know that. My eyesight is not so good as to read the comments as your chat is going on. And also my mind is a little bit one track, so I won't be able to get distracted into chat. So my request to you, because this is online and I can't see your faces, I can't even see Marta anymore and our team, do react to what is going on. If you relate, or if you like what you're hearing, or maybe even if you disagree, but do react in the chat with emojis, because emojis I can register. And if you have any questions, then leave them in Q&A, and then Marta is going to monitor that everything gets answered. And people who want to join the chat later at the end of the hour, I think Marta will give you that chance as well. So thank you for the first emojis coming in. That's good. Thank you. So, you know, when I suggested to my team that I'm going to talk about self-love, and actually I gave this somewhat humorous title for this talk, Love for Yourself is the beginning of a lifelong romance, I heard the very common comment that I hear all the time, that, you know, it's kind of odd. People don't... Somehow we know that self-love is important, but we don't value it seriously enough. So, you know, I do teach about self-love. I have courses about self-love. I have written a book about self-love. And while my marketing team keeps telling me that I have to say it in a more pragmatic way, I keep, maybe because I'm just an obstinate human being, I keep saying that, you know, self-love is important. So, you know, in the 20 years in personal growth and transformation, what I've noticed is that a lot of the times when people talk about the things which are essential to our life, whether it's our well-being, self-love, happiness, we say, oh, this is a soft skill, and we dismiss it. I hear that reaction all the time. You know, being in this industry, I know you can't sell self-love very well. People just think that it is unimportant, which is such a bizarre thing, in my opinion, that, you know, why do we dismiss it? And I would claim that self-love is one of those soft skills, which is really, really hard to master. So yes, it's a soft skill, but very few people actually mastered it. To substantiate my point, I have to give you this number. You know that 85% of all adults and adolescents, adults and young adults, 85% have low self-esteem. And yes, granted, self-esteem and self-love are not exactly the same thing, but they have very much the same kind of roots and very much the same kind of mechanism behind them. So 85% of people, in essence, think that they're not worthy, they're not good enough. And yet we say self-love is a soft skill. So of course, I've questioned that thing. And I want to, you know what, before we go into the topic, I want to ask you a question, and I want you to actually write the answer in the chat. Think of all the things that you have prioritized recently prioritized over your self-love. And here I'll give you some examples. You have too much to do at work, and you are sacrificing certain, you know, certain self-care routines, although self-care is not self-love. Or, for example, rather than getting into complicated discussion, you would not express your needs or your feelings or your values. So I want you to answer that question. And if you can, please write in the chat your answers. What were in the recent times, what were the things that you prioritized over your own self-love?
Recording in progress.
Is it work? Is it peace of mind, you know, not rocking the boat? The thing is that we very often say, I don't have time for that. It's unimportant. You know, as an entrepreneur, I know how it works. Economic crisis is looming. I don't know, we don't have enough customers, something like that. We very often think these questions are so pressing, they're so much more important than my own well-being. And you can replace self-love with well-being, happiness, whatever it is that we call soft skill, which I still insist, is incredibly hard to master. And thank you for your answers, by the way. Overworking. Well, you know what? Thank you for all your answers. And if Marta is keeping track on that, I'm going to give freedom to Marta to switch on her mic and maybe her camera, and once in a while butt in and just say, you see, people are saying this thing. So we habitually feel that we don't have time for self-love. In fact, you know, there's two reasons why I think we don't take this topic seriously. One of them is that we think we don't have time for that. I have more pressing problems. My kids are not listening to me. I have too much work to do. I'm too scared. You know, I don't want to rock the boat. I'm afraid. The very common excuse is I have responsibilities. For example, I do the work that I don't love because I have responsibilities. I have bills to pay. So, you know, while we dismiss this topic, it is probably one of the main causes why humanity is suffering, because 85% of adults feel that they're not good enough. Another reason why I think, so reason number one, why we deprioritize self-love is that we don't have time for that habitually. Reason number two is because we don't understand what it is. We really don't know what self-love really is. We don't know how it feels. How does it feel to love yourself? How does it feel to love yourself in a healthy way? Where's the boundary between self-love and self-obsession? You know, in the contemporary world where we think that the whole world is obsessed with showing their, you know, their best facade, we think that we have an excess of self-love. In my opinion, these are all distortions of self-love, which are coming from one very simple reason. We do not understand the phenomena. We don't know what it is. We don't have a definition for this. So these are just the two reasons. I'm not going to go deeper into the reasons right now. I do want to talk about some of the distortions of self-love with you. But actually, what I want to tell you is that by the end of this workshop, all these pieces are going to fall into one big picture. Why self-esteem is pretty much a marker why our contemporary society is suffering with self-love. What can you do? Why do we misunderstand that? How do we misunderstand it? And you know that title of my talk today is a quote from Oscar Wilde. I think he was an incredibly wise person and also very humorous. So I do believe that by the end of this workshop, the question of what does it mean to love me is going to be so much easier. But first, let's start with distortions. So as I said, we don't understand the phenomenon of self-love. I believe there are a few distortions. We think that self-obsession or being egocentric or selfish, this is an excess of self-love when there is too much self-love. We think that we very often, another distortion is that we think that if we love ourselves too much, we'll be complacent, indulgent, we won't grow, that for the growth you need a little bit of discomfort and pain, otherwise you will not want to change. One more distortion would be a little bit tricky, and I want to start with this one. It is, we very often confuse self-care with self-love. And I want to start with this distortion, and after that I want to do a little experiment with you because we'll go deeper. We very often confuse self-care with self-love, and if I were to ask you, how do you express love for yourself? Quite naturally, most people would say, in fact, you know what? How do you express love for yourself? How do you take care of yourself, take care of this relationship? So very often what people do is that they take time for themselves, which is good, but very often our understanding of self-love is a little bit skin deep. It's self-care rituals. Now, to drive the point, self-care is actually about survival. And self-care is definitely a sign that you have a healthy relationship with yourself because you care of yourself, about yourself. But this causality only goes one way. If you love yourself, you're very likely going to take care of yourself. But if you take care of yourself, it's not a marker of you loving yourself. It's not a guarantee at all. And a very simple example would be, so this is my phone. You know, I charge this device not out of love towards this piece of machinery. I charge it because if I don't, it will die. And of course, I'm not going to talk about love for a piece of machinery, but I want you to understand that self-care is about survival and self-love is about thriving. And this is one of the big distortions because you see, we humans, we like tangible things, and self-care is tangible. It's ritualistic. You can do a certain thing. You can meditate, you can take a bath, you can go shopping, you can take a piece of chocolate, whatever it is. I'm not judging people for how they take care of themselves or not take care of themselves, how they please themselves. But it's ritualistic and we understand that. And when something is ritualistic, it's so easy to do that. If I want to do more, of self-love, I'll do more of self-care. Obviously, that means I love myself. It's easy to put more time in. It's easy to put more effort in. But self-love is a relationship. It is not a ritual. It's a relationship. And relationship is something different. Here, I'll bring you another example just to understand. If those of you who have children, it will be easy for you to relate. If you don't have children, I'm sure you can still picture it. When a child is born, a child needs care. We need to feed the child, dress the child, give the child shelter, education. But a child will grow into a happy human being only if a child has love. And love cannot be replaced with self-care rituals or with the maintenance rituals, with the rituals of caring about the child. So a stereotypical picture would be a wealthy child who has everything the child might need physically in the material world, except the love of their parents. And that's what we very often do when we confuse self-love with self-care. We deal with the things which are tangible and easy to understand, hoping that this is going to improve my relationship with myself, but there is no guarantee because taking care of myself doesn't mean that I know how to love myself. Imagine if you were to fail on the ritual of self-care. What would you tell yourself? If you were stressed and you indulged in that, I don't know, tub of ice cream or too much alcohol, how would you treat yourself? So I leave you with that bizarre thing. What I want to come back to is this one. Let me just check with my notes because I don't want to miss anything. You know what I want to talk about? The number one rule in personal growth and transformation, having been here for 20 years, I want to share that. The number one rule in our sphere is that if you want to improve anything in your life, you have to work on that. If you want to improve your relationship with your body, you have to work on that. If you want to improve your relationship with your lover, you usually have to work on your relationship. And if you want to improve your relationship with children, you have to work on those relationships. With money, you have to work on that relationship. And I'm deliberately focusing on relationships, although it's true about anything. If you want to improve, I do not know, your spiritual life, you have to work on that field, or your financial well-being, you have to work on that field. But relationships, all the relationships, for them to be healthy, need care and attention. Yet when it comes to relationship with ourselves, because first of all, we deprioritize it, we never have time for that. Second, we misunderstand it. We actually leave it without care, not deliberately, but just because it's so confusing. So my question to you again, and I want you to use the chat again, and I'm looking at it, even if I can't read all the answers. How would you, how would you term your relationship with yourself? Like in Facebook, it's, I'm single, I'm in a relationship, it's complicated. How would you term your relationship with yourself? Are you, is it healthy? Are you good? Is it on and off? Is it rocky? Is it yo-yo? Think about that. How stable, how healthy is your relationship with yourself? I think the idea that I want to impress on you is that your relationship with yourself, jokes aside, is the most important relationship that you can nurture. And the question I want you to ask yourself, when was the last time you nurtured your relationship with yourself? And I'm not talking about self-care rituals, but the actual relationship. When was the last time you had a deep, soulful conversation with yourself? Especially when you needed it, especially when you were overwhelmed, especially when you were stressed. So I know that Mindvalley crowd is very aware and very attuned to all these things. So most likely the situation here is much healthier than the situation outside this room, if we were to talk to just people on the street. So what I want to, yes, Marta?
Maybe let me help you, Chris, to read a few comments here, because it's really very interesting what people are writing. Some people are writing that their relationships with themselves are complicated. Some are writing that newly loving relationships and working on it. Beautifully unfolding, a mystery, some are writing. So maybe those who are having a mystery will have some kind of interesting, will open some interesting things today. Some saying a permanent, something they're improving. So like a lot of things are going on. Please go on, and Kristina will read this chat later as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so sorry that I can't catch up with the chat because my train of thought is going this way. But thank you, Marta, for joining, and you're welcome to do that again. So you see, your relationship with yourself is super important. I'm sure that previous speakers, actually, I'm not sure, but I believe that some of the previous speakers, especially those who were talking about relationship with the outside world, would have hinted to you that your relationship with the outside world is very often a reflection of your relationship with yourself. And very often in our industry, when you talk about how can I find a soulmate or someone to love, it all starts with you sorting out your mess with yourself. So you see, these reasons are all, while kind of tangible and understandable, that yes, self-love is important, but the problem of our neglected relationship with ourselves goes much deeper than that. And here I want to geek out with you a little bit because I have a very geeky background. I want to take a step back and talk about such a phenomenon as reticular activating system of your brain. It is really a very magnificent region of your brain, and I'm simplifying right now, but reticular activating system of your brain, it regulates what you notice. It's not a mystery, that we are surprised, we're surrounded on a daily basis, but by a lot of signals. And for us to function, we need to focus on certain things. So that's what our reticular activating system of our brain does to us. It allows us to focus on certain things. So I want to make a little experiment with you right now. It's an in-class exercise. I know it's not as interactive as in a live group, but still, I want you right now to look around you. Just look around you and notice everything which is yellow around you. So if I were to look around my house, you probably see the yellow tulips behind me, and I see some yellow paper around. So just look around and notice everything which is yellow around you. And by the way, if you have done that exercise on RIS, or reticular activating system, you can still do it over and over again, and you'll still get the same result. So I assume that you have noticed everything yellow. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes. I want you to close your eyes and be honest, really close your eyes. And I want you to recall everything in your environment which was blue. So take a moment to think of all the things that you noticed in your environment which were blue. I'm going to give you another moment, because if you rack your brains, maybe you will remember something. If you're actually in a familiar environment, you'll probably remember things. Not because you observe them right now, but because you remember. Now, I want you to open your eyes and look around and notice everything which is blue in your environment, and notice if there is anything you didn't see because you were focusing on a yellow. It's a very simple exercise, but that's exactly how our brain works. And why I wanted to do this exercise is because it actually is probably one of the most remarkable parts about the anatomy of our beliefs. So the conclusion of that exercise is that your goal defines your perception. Whatever you focus on, that's what you're going to notice. And that's pure psychology. Your goal defines your perception. If your goal was to notice yellow things, that's what your perception was focused on. And naturally, the things which are a little bit different color or a little bit different, they might have been just without attention. Of course, different people have different capabilities of noticing minor details, but most of us notice things that we focus on. Why is it the core component of the anatomy of our beliefs? It is because if you believe in something, because this is your goal, it defines your perception. What you believe in, you're going to notice. That's how beliefs are being formed, and that's how they are reinforced. You believe that aging brings wrinkles and gray hair, you will notice that all around you. You believe that aging doesn't mean that you have to change your lifestyle, that's what you're going to notice. That's in everyday life. So first, and this is an important component, I want you to just keep it there. First, your goal defines your perception. Now, the second aspect to the perception that I want to talk about is that you actually train the world how to perceive you. You're teaching the world how the world is going to take you, how the world is going to receive you. So a very simple example, and probably women relate a little bit more to that, but who knows? A very simple example, if you're a woman and maybe you have done that, maybe you have worn very sexy underwear underneath your official clothes and nobody can see it, but you know that you're a real vixen underneath there and you feel very different. Nobody can see it, but you perceive yourself differently. And that's how you carry yourself. And that's how the world takes you. Or a slightly, maybe more pragmatic example would be, in 20 years in personal growth, I've seen so many people go on stage, and I've worked with a lot of authors off stage and on stage. I've worked with people who are in front of the camera and people who are in the same people in regular conversation. And I've noticed one very strange lack of correlation. Very often, a very smart, deep teacher, if they are unsure, uncertain, or not confident enough, will not come across on stage as a very smart and deep teacher. Well, it's not just my observation. Research says that your success depends 50% on your competency and 50% on your confidence. Half of your success is determined by your confidence, because you teach the world how they're going to perceive you. So, cute, sexy underwear and speaking gigs aside, I want to do another exercise with you. I want to do another exercise with you. And that exercise, I like to do it in class. I mean, in live class. So I'll have to do a little alteration to this exercise so that we can we can actually do it. It's called self-talk exercise, and I swiped it off Dove commercial. And if you have done that, please do it again. So what I want you to do right now is going to be a little bit meditative, but it's not a meditation, it's an exercise. So before we go into this exercise, I want to ask you to take a sheet of paper and something to write on, or you can use your phone if it's easier, or you can open, if you're on your computer, you can open just any text editing software to type in there. So get ready to write something. And I hope you're ready. So what I want you to do right now is close your eyes, take a deep breath. It's not a meditation, it's an exercise. Take a deep, so the question was 50% competence, 50% confidence, but that's aside. So take a deep breath, and as you exhale, relax. And I want you to bring to your memory an episode from your recent past where you felt very intense emotion, and you probably, maybe you did something which you were not very proud of. So think of some episode where you maybe lashed out on someone, or maybe you feel somewhere deep inside you should have behaved differently, or maybe you failed at something. As an example, I like to bring, I learned to ride a bike at 43, and in the beginning, when I was trying to ride, I would start falling over, and I would tell myself, why can't you just learn it? It's so easy. Why everybody can, you can't. So something like that, where you were not performing at your best. So I want you to bring this episode to your memory, and I want you to imagine yourself reliving this episode again. Imagine yourself in that very place where it's happening. Maybe it's an argument with your colleague. Maybe your boss scolded you. Imagine yourself in that place. You can visualize that place. If visualizing is not your forte, then hear the conversation, feel the emotions. Feel the emotions, and you're allowed to bring these emotions back. And what do you feel? Do you feel frustrated, helpless, ashamed, guilty, whatever it is? Bring up this emotion. And now I want you to reimagine, what are you telling yourself? What is your self-dialogue? Are you asking yourself what's wrong with you? A lot of people do that. Are you asking yourself, why do you do that again? It's always like this with you. Or maybe you're even harder on yourself. Maybe you say you're such a failure, such a loser. Why can't you get yourself together? What's wrong with you? So reimagine that self-talk again. What are you telling yourself in that situation where you did not perform at your best? Take another deep breath, and as you exhale, relax and open your eyes. And I want you to take a moment and write down that self-talk on a sheet of paper or your tablet or the computer. Just write down that self-talk. So somebody says, fear of others being disappointed in me. Maybe you, how do you say it to yourself? Why do you keep disappointing people? Oh, they're so disappointed. Why did you have to do that? Write the self-talk. What do you say to yourself? And I'm going to give you about a minute to do that. It doesn't have to be a long essay. You can actually expand on that self-talk. Maybe you didn't have such an elaborate self-talk at that moment, but if you were thinking about that situation over and over again, what were you telling yourself? Yeah, thank you guys who are leaving your comments in the chat. I look silly, yeah. You'd have ignored knowing, yeah, I'm embarrassed, my poor wife. So another 10 seconds. So now I'm going to do a little twist. There's no need to read it out right now. I want to do a little twist. So you can take a pause for writing. So what I do in my live classes, I usually ask people to find a partner and exchange the notes. But right now, since I can't tell if you are alone listening to this workshop or if you are with someone, what I want you to do right now is to rewrite this text. But before you rewrite this text, what I want you to think about, I want you to think about a person in your life that you love the most, I would say the most effortlessly. It's probably someone like your child, your parent, your sibling, your lover, but someone who it is very easy to love, someone that you love effortlessly and unconditionally. Think of that person. And of course, I know I gave you a little bit of a spoiler because I never do this exercise this way. And the spoiler is that I want you to rewrite that self-talk, replacing yourself with that person. So in my case, when I was upset with myself, not riding the bike, it's so easy. What's wrong with you? Why are you failing again? I would rewrite it, let's say, if I were to replace myself with Hayden, my son, I would write, Hayden, what's wrong with you? Why can't you learn that? Everybody knows how to do that. Why can't you? It's like you've been doing that for a long time. What's going on? Again, you're failing again. So rewrite that self-talk, but replace you with the person who you find the easiest, the most effortless to love unconditionally. So I'll give you a minute to do that. Oh, so repeat the task is rewrite your self-talk that you just wrote, rewrite it, replacing yourself with the name of the person that you find the easiest to love. It may be your child, your sibling, your lover, someone that you love unconditionally, and you don't need to put any effort to love them. So if you were to say, yes, writing exactly the same text, exactly the same, only replace you with that person. So if you were telling yourself, why are you letting them down again? Why can't you get your shit together? So you are to write it, Hayden, or in my case, it would be Hayden. Why do you keep letting them down? Why can't you get yourself together? Yeah, so if I don't have a lot of time, and unfortunately, although thank you guys for actually leaving your comments in the chat, unfortunately, it's not the same kind of interaction as in the same room. So I'm not going to linger on that exercise much longer, but if you want to take it further, another twist to the exercise that you might want to experiment with, it's going to be very illuminating for you, is take a diary with you for a day and write down your self-talk as you go through the day. When you wake up in the morning and look in the mirror, what do you say to yourself? You know that 80% of women don't like what they see in the mirror. Very often when we look at ourselves, we start criticizing. Write it down. Write down your self-talk throughout the day. And if you want to get a real kick, then in the evening, ask that very person whom you love the most to read it out to you, back to you. Or if you want to get really painful, then you can read your own self-talk to the person that you love as if you're talking to them. Now, while I'm doing this exercise, we are very often unaware how mean we are to ourselves. We think that we love ourselves because that's an assumption and it's such a natural thing to do. We very often misunderstand self-love. But when we look deeper into the essence of things, we discover that we're really mean to ourselves. I deliberately, as a point of reference, I deliberately ask you to think of someone that you love effortlessly. Someone that you love effortlessly. Would you ever be this mean to that person? So how can you say that you love yourself if you allow yourself to be this mean to yourself? So normally I would go into a little bit of meditation to digest that whole thing, but I'm going to leave you with that. because I want you to actually ponder on that aspect of your relationship with yourself. And what I want you to understand is that the perception of you that you're teaching the world is exactly this self-talk. It's not your aspiration. Your self-talk is the perception that you teach the world. Your self-talk is that sexy underwear that nobody can see that you know that you have on. It's that confidence, which is 50% of your success. That's your self-talk, not your aspiration, not your picture of perfection that you aspire for. That's just a goal. That's just a lighthouse that you go for. And then if you also think of the first exercise that we did about reticular activating system, your goal defines your perception. So if you're mean to yourself, unfortunately, that's your goal. And your perception is going to pick up in the environment all the signs that you're a failure, that you're letting people down, that you're disappointing, that you're, I do not know, fat, ugly, and old. Whatever nasty things we tell ourselves, even sometimes in passing without even believing in them. But we keep imprinting that onto our reticular activating system and onto the world. So here I want to give you a little bit of an example, because since we are talking about perception and the perception and the perfectionism, I said perception that you're training, and by the way, thank you, Pauline, but perception that we are training. You know what? I will make a break. I will make a break because I want to go a little further, and I hope we have enough time. Marta, do you think we could bring up some people if somebody feels like they would like to share how they felt about this exercise? Maybe just 3 people, because I want to be mindful of the time and I still want to cover a few topics.
Of course. So those who would like to share, please raise your hand. You have here on the panel in Zoom the option to raise your hand, and I will just bring some people just randomly. Okay, I can see some hands here. Let's start with Wendy. Wendy, I will bring you up. Okay, Wendy has disappeared. Okay, here you are. I will bring you up, Wendy, and yeah, I will promote you to panelist, and you will be able to ask your question. Please make sure that you have your camera on and your microphone on. You'll be able to do this in a few minutes or in a few seconds, I mean.
Hey, Wendy.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm trying to cover, I'm still in my pajamas. So anyways, so you want me to, I'll listen and then I'll do what you say.
So I just wanted to ask if anybody wants to share how did they feel about the self-talk that they wrote down when it was turned towards the person that they love the most?
Coming from them? Okay.
Or if you were to say that to them.
Okay. If I was to say it to them, I would say, you're okay. Yes, you have been, you could have been quiet, but then you would have felt worse afterwards. And I guess you still need a little more work on that area.
But
That's me
is that what you told yourself? Is that how you told?
No, that's not what I told myself. What
Would
I told
Yeah.
Okay. I said, you stupid bitch. What is it that you're allowing this other person? I called her a bitch too. Sorry for the words, but she's saying, and I'm saying, stay calm, don't overreact. You're, on a public forum, in one of the classes on Mindvalley. And then I'm saying, what the hell is she doing? Okay, Wendy, breathe, calm. Don't bite her head off. And you shouldn't have let her get to you and trigger you like that. So
I'm sorry to do a little bit of an experiment, and I hope you're okay with that. What's the name of the person that you love the most?
My husband, or my children, or my grandchildren.
Can you give me a name?
Okay, Jocelyn.
Sorry?
That's Jocelyn. He's my husband. Yeah,
Jocelyn.
No, Jocelyn. Take off the E and then you got it.
Jocelyn.
No, yeah, Jocelyn.
Jocelyn.
Okay, we'll call him JJ. That's easier.
JJ.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to put him into your self-talk, JJ, you stupid bitch, why can't you shut up?
Yeah, that doesn't sit with me.
Exactly, but you say that about yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's true. That's I typed on this was totally awesome. And I'm going to do this more often.
Thank you.
Because it's very mind opening.
Thank you so much. So that's what I encourage you guys to do. Give it, if you can't read it out to your loved one, just replacing yourself with their name. Not Kristina, you stupid idiot, but Hayden, you stupid idiot. Then if you can't do that because it's intense, you can ask, well, in your case, JJ, in my case, Hayden. Hayden, can you read this to me, please, and see how they feel about it?
Yeah, I know for sure that anybody that I would love would say, I'm not saying this.
Yes.
Yeah, I know that for a fact. So you're absolutely correct.
So thank you, Wendy, for joining me. And I'm going to thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm going to trace back my request to bring up 3 people because I'm very conscious of time. So we can do a longer session. If I finish up everything on time, we can do a longer session afterwards. And if anybody wants to share their feelings, then you will have a chance for that. So what I wanted to say is that how you teach the world to perceive you is based on your self-talk and not on your aspirations, not on that persona of perfect you that we are all aspiring for. And being in this industry, I know that everybody who comes here, whether consciously, openly, or subconsciously, they have that picture of what it means to be the better version of me, that picture of perfection. I'm a perfectionist. I've been perfectionist all my life. I get it. Most of us are perfectionists, by the way. And perfectionism is, by the way, one more distortion of self-love. Perfectionism is not about loving you. Very often it's the source, the cause of the darkness. It's the source of those things that we can't accept about ourselves. And I'll give you a very simple analogy to make it vivid. So when people fall in love with someone else, a romantic love, after all, it's a love week. So when you fall in love with someone else, usually we have a list of things that make someone a perfect partner for us. So those people who go for sessions like we've had, probably you guys have an actual list that you've written down. I want my partner to be so, so, and so. But most of us, those who don't have the actual list, we at least have some kind of idea. Oh, these qualities make this person a perfect partner for me. So when we see a person who ticks all the boxes, we naturally start feeling attachment towards them. And then biology kicks in and helps us with a little bit of, chemicals in our body, and we fall in love. We are enamored. So when we fall in love with a person, we notice all the ticks, everything that's right about the person. And when something is wrong, usually in the very early stages, when we are still a little bit intoxicated with our own feelings, we ignore the red flags. And that's what the stage of being enamored, being in love is about. It's actually, we can't blame ourselves. It's how nature made us to make sure that we actually mate. Nature actually made us be blind towards the object of our in-loveness. It also made us to be, poisoned by our own hormones, so that we actually fall in love with that person. Now, of course, after we fall in love and probably hopefully commit, after a certain time, I think science says it's about 2 months to 2 years, depending on the feeling of the strength of an initial feeling, the nature takes a step back and lets us be and stops drugging us. And the in-loveness changes to another phase of knowing the person. So you stop ignoring the red flags and noticing only the green checks. And you start seeing the person for what they are, the real person. And here comes the first trial. Are you going to love the person the way they are, imperfect? Or are you going to be disillusioned and separate and go look for a better partner? So that's how it happens in relationships, in romantic relationships for us. But very similar thing happens to us in our relationship with ourselves. We have the picture of perfection, and this is that list of what makes me a perfect person. And every time I tick the box, I'm fine. But when there is red flag, I don't know what to do with that, because I haven't been taught to love myself imperfectly. Are you ready to love yourself before you're perfect? That's a question I want to ask you. Are you ready to love yourself before you are the best version of yourself? Truly love yourself. And I know it's very tempting to say yes, but that's not how we've been brought up. You see, when children grow up, we are very often well-meaning parents, and I know I've done that too. It's just programmed into us over generations. But very often, part of bringing up children is negotiating our love. So the child behaves, or let's say the child performs well in school, brings really good marks, or sometimes, you know, the child comes and he or she gets an award, and we tell them, oh my God, I'm so proud of you, I love you so much. We give them so much love, and they feel that behaving well gives me love and attention. Now, if the child does something that we don't like, doesn't listen to us, doesn't listen to our advice, breaks something, is naughty, then very often well-meaning parents, because it's hard sometimes to convey your feelings, they take away the love. Oh, you misbehaved. Mommy is not happy. And I've done that too. And teachers do that to us, parents do that to us, siblings do that to us, friends do that to us. We learn to deal love like currency. If you behave well, you'll get love. If you don't behave, you won't get love. And that doesn't mean we don't love the person, but we make a show of taking love back. So naturally, when we grow up, we learn that love has to be earned. And that's the biggest, I'm sorry for my language, bullshit that you can ever believe. You do not have to earn love. You do not have to deserve love, especially your own. You don't have to do anything to be worthy of your own love. And when we were doing the exercise, I said, can you imagine that the person that you love the most would say something like that to you? Or could you say that to the person that you love the most? Well, the truth is, well, I don't know actually the truth, but my belief is that the only person whose love you can reasonably expect in the whole world is yourself. Nobody has to love you. Nobody has this obligation. But you're the only person whose love you can reasonably expect. So that's why I think that we misunderstand the concept of self-love. We dismiss it, we consider it unimportant, but if you think of the way our brain works, the way our beliefs are being formed, the way our relationship with the world is being formed, doesn't that become very clear that self-love is an incredibly important piece of the puzzle? If you want to be successful, happy, if you want to have a meaningful life, if you want to be of any help to anyone, you have to learn to love yourself, because that's the basis for everything. So, as I said, there are a few, the two reasons why we dismiss self-love. One is we don't have time for that. We think it's unimportant. And the second thing is that we don't understand it. There are so many distortions of self-love, and I did want to talk about the first distortion, which is mixing up self-love with self-care in the very beginning, because I wanted to get it out of the way. And I want you to understand that very often when we can't get it, what does it mean to love me? We resort to self-care because this is easy. I don't know how to forgive myself, but I can give myself a good time. I don't know how to be okay with my imperfections, but I can at least give myself a chocolate. Well, chocolate is my big vice. So that's why I think it is incredibly important to understand that self-care is not self-love. What else self-love is not? Self-love is not, or excess of self-love is not selfishness. And I did mention that in the very beginning, that we live in a world which likes to, in an exhibitionist world. If you go on social media, all you see is a lot of show off. And we think, because people are craving for attention, like me, comment me, look at me, be pleased with me. We like to please other people, even if we don't care. We think that we live in a world which is self-obsessed. But in reality, all these things, egocentrism, self-obsession, selfishness, these are not the self-love. These are the absence of self-love. It's because you don't have enough for yourself. It's because you're so desperate you can't give yourself what you should be able to give yourself. You're going to look for it on the outside. If I can't love myself, can you love me? Can you look at me? Can you like me? And if you like me, then maybe I'll think that I'm worthy. So think of it this way. If love, actually, I've almost finished my water, but if love is water and you're the vessel, if your vessel is full with your own love, you can't pour anything from outside. It's because your vessel is empty, like mine right now. That's when you start sucking up love from your environment. So again, you see, we are afraid of too much self-love. We say, but where's the boundary? How am I going to know that I'm not just being selfish? That's how you will know. You know, if you need something from that outside, that means you don't have enough inside. That's a red flag. That's a moment for you to take time for a deep conversation with yourself, to sit down and ask yourself, what's going on, Kristina? Why am I depriving myself of my love? Why am I slamming the brakes? Why do I think I'm not worthy? So, you know, the last, thank you so much for your comments. And the last distortion that I want to talk about, guys, is the distortion that bothers people the most, especially the pragmatic people. And one of my favorite things is to talk to people who are not yet in personal growth and transformation, because I come from a very skeptical background. I really get kicks from talking to people who tell me, oh, self-love, who cares? I have business to run, you know? My clients are going away. The economic crisis is happening. I know. I've been in business for 20 years. I've done business in Russia. I don't do it anymore. But I've survived not just economic crisis, I've survived war. I know that. And that's an excuse. That's an excuse. That's what I tell you. Because a lot of people think that you need to be critical if you want to grow. And that's the paradigm in which we have been all brought up. You need to be critical if you want to grow. If you're not self-critical, you're not going to grow. It's a very interesting paradigm because, first of all, it's based on the idea that people are lazy and stupid. Because if you don't let them be, they're just going to lie in bed and do nothing. That's a very, very horrible belief. And by the way, do you remember reticular activating system? If that's what you believe in, that's what you're going to notice. Now, you see, as I said, I was a perfectionist and I was a straight A student in school. In fact, I was such a good student that I got a medal from the president of Estonia for being the best student in my school at the end of my school. I mean, the whole school, high school. So I know what it means to put a lot of work and effort and work and study hard. And I understand this paradigm because that's how I was brought up. When my parents went to school, my parents were told what I was bad at so that I can put more effort into that. Because if you work on the things that you're bad at, that's when you are going to be successful. That's the paradigm that we live in. It's called the red marker technique. You know, if you do, let's say, if you do an essay and your teacher marks all the bad places, and then you have to focus on not making these mistakes again. This is just a paradigm that we as a society for centuries have decided to believe in. And naturally, we see the proof of that paradigm. Another paradigm is called the green marker technique. Imagine if you do the essay and your teacher marks all the places where you have been genius and asks you to focus more on these things. If my parents came to school and my teacher told them not that, oh, she should do more of the thing that she hates and she's not good at, but what if Kristina did more of the things that she's really good at, she really loves, and that really has meaning? Can you imagine how your life would be if you spent more time doing things that truly matter, that you love, and that you are good at? And it's a different paradigm, and I know it's scary. It is scary because we haven't seen again, reticular activating system. We see the proof of the paradigm that we live in. So another example of why self-criticism, because, you know, there are two paradigms how you can grow. If you don't mind, I'll share one more story about myself. So I was born in Soviet Union, and Soviet Union was super strong on sports. And the way Soviet Union produced Olympic athletes was that they picked little children from kindergarten and they put them in the things called Olympic reserves. It was literally a mincing machine. When I was 4 years old, the Olympic reserves came to my kindergarten and picked me up for gymnastics. And this is the first memory of my life because it was so traumatic. I was crying my eyes out and begging my mom never to take me back to that mincing machine. The first training that I had, they put me on a split without asking any questions. I remember a lot of physical pain the whole time, a lot of physical pain, screaming. And I begged my mom never to bring me back. So you see, as a 4-year-old, the funny thing is that the next year they actually came back and picked me up for figure skating, but my mom had known better by then. And until this day, I have a very bad relationship with sports. But at 4 years old and 5 years old, it was established that apparently I have something that makes me sporty. I had potential. But the paradigm of red marker, the paradigm of punishment, of fear, of force, has made waste material of me. So while our society, movies, popular culture, books, everything romanticizes that paradigm of punishment, force, pain, and we see examples of that, we never hear about the waste material. By the way, I still love sports, but I have such painful relationship with sports. I have to force myself. But when I get it, I'm really good at that. We never talk about waste material. The other paradigm, the paradigm of green marker or the paradigm of encouragement, also creates success. But it doesn't create as much waste material. It doesn't create waste material because it doesn't break people. It makes you, it lets you focus on the things that you're good at. Now, one more argument, because I know this is the biggest argument why people refuse to change their worldview about self-love, happiness, about fulfillment, why they still insist that we have to live in the old world, is that we truly believe that if I love myself, I'm going to be complacent. So one of Mindvalley's teachers, Marissa Peer, and if you know Marissa Peer, you can leave a heart for her or whatever. I love Marissa. So Marissa was once recording a quest with us, with Mindvalley. And one of our video team said, you know, Marissa's message is, you are enough. So one of our videographers said, Marissa, but if I keep telling myself I'm enough, am I not going to lie in bed all day telling myself I'm enough? I don't need to do anything. What's there more to want? So what Marissa said, she said, you know what? You're lying in bed and doing nothing, not because you think you're enough. It's because you're afraid that you're not enough. You're afraid to go and challenge yourself. You're afraid if you go and challenge yourself and you fail, you will not be able to love yourself. You will not be able to think that you're enough. So what I want to impress on you, that self-love, self-compassion are a doorway to true courage, are a doorway to you having that courage to go out and challenge yourself, truly challenge yourself, because you know that you cannot mess up. No matter how bad you fail, you still deserve your own self-love. So I'm going to end on that because the time is coming to an end. And one distortion I didn't really unpack, it's perfectionism. So rather than unpacking that distortion, all I want to say is that, you know what? World doesn't need your perfection. What world needs is the real you. And I'll finish it with a story from my mom. My mom used to work in an orphanage here in Estonia, and in Estonia, being, you know, Western country, fairly affluent, kids who end up in an orphanage are usually children who come from the worst families, the most unfortunate families. So a lot of the kids in my mom's orphanage, they came from families where parents were drug addicts or alcoholics, or a dad would have killed a mom. And my mom once came home from work and she said, you know, I can't understand that. They have the most complicated, the most messed up parents in the world, but they love them. And the only thing these children want is to have their parents back. They don't care how messed up they are. All they want is their parents to be back, just to have their parents. So what I'm trying to impress on you is that no matter what it looks on the outside, on the facade, no matter what you say to the world, no matter how well you care of yourself, are you present there for yourself? Are you your best cheerleader? Are you your best friend? Because you're the only person whose love you can reasonably expect, demand, and want. So thank you guys for this time. I'm very grateful to you for your chat comments, but now I think if we have time, and we have time, I try to finish on time, I will be very glad to take some questions.
Thank you so much, Kristina. I can see that the chat is going wild right now.
Oh, by the way, I'll use the chance. I have written a book, Becoming Flawsome, which is about that. You can pre-order that. And I know, being a co-founder of Mindvalley, I'm using this chance. Please do pre-order my book if you liked what I was talking about. I do cover some of these topics, but I go much deeper. So thanks. Marta, back to you. Don't tell Vision.
I am putting the links in the chat so you can actually see the book also as a link to the book as well. And so let's jump to the questions. I have a few picked up for you, Kristina, so to do it fast. So the first question is, with social media being so important today in people's lives, how can you help others realize that they should not compare themselves to others in their lives?
Oh my God, you just touched upon the topic, which I will not be able to answer very briefly. Well, the thing for you to understand my answer, you have to understand my philosophy in life. And my philosophy in life is that don't try to fix other people. Don't try to fix other people. And very often when we, there is such a concept as causing good to others. And I know it might come a little bit counterintuitive, because I'm a co-founder of Mindvalley. I'm an author. I'm a writer. I've written a book. Yet with all that, I think that we shouldn't force people into transformation. And again, in my book, there's a whole chapter about that, about nonviolence, about letting people have their own journeys. And I don't want to go deeper into that, because I will speak for another 1 hour if I want to unpack that thing. But what I want to tell you that, don't fix other people. If you want to, your relationship with the world is a reflection of your relationship with yourself. So if you learn to be kind to yourself, it's much easier to be kind to other people. If you learn to be tolerant of your quirks, it's much easier to be tolerant of other people's quirks. So if something bugs you, if you see someone on social media going crazy, no matter how well you wish them, ask yourself first, why is it bugging me? Why is it triggering me? Because it's always good to reflect back and see why are you touched by that. Now, if the question is about your child, then this is a different story, because very often still with children, I also have the same rule, but I take a little disclaimer, because we are responsible for children until they are 18 at least. We are not responsible for their happiness, by the way. Another teacher from Mindvalley, Shefali Sabari, talks about that beautifully, Dr. Shefali, in fact. So you can't be responsible for your child's happiness, but you can, of course, help your child to grow up in a safe environment and also in a healthy environment. Now, here, my answer would be a little bit annoying. You can tell your child whatever you like. You can teach them however you like. They will still emulate you. So if that question was because you're worried that your child is comparing themselves to the people on social media, then again, pick up the mirror, look at yourself and ask yourself, when did I teach my child to care about the facades of other people? I know that this question comes through you, so if I haven't answered it fully, you're welcome to write a follow-up question. Marta, back to you.
Thank you. And one more question, Kristina, to you. Anya is asking, what comes up is how much women put self-care aside for care for others, especially children. And if they're working and they're having family to take care about, what will be the best advice for them to take to move forward and to love themselves first?
So I will come back to the first distortion of self-love. Self-care is a symptom of self-love, but it is not a cause of self-love. Self-care is about surviving, self-love is about thriving. So self-care rituals are important, but they're not going to make you love yourself. Sometimes we are in periods of time where we have to step aside from our familiar rituals. Can you keep your love going? So a very silly analogy would be, if you take a really long flight, Asia to Europe, it's 12-hour flight, and you don't have a chance to take a shower, and maybe you stink, and normally in that time you would brush your teeth. And imagine you're traveling with your child, right? The love is not about how well taken care you are. The love is about how can you still love and accept yourself when you're messy, when you're overwhelmed, when you're stressed, when you haven't had time for self-care. Now, I know practically it's not going to help mothers. So to help mothers, I'll give you a different, more down-to-earth example, and a more down-to-earth reply. I think that beauty rituals are overrated. All you need for self-care is literally a shower, brushing your teeth, and using a bathroom. And that if you're very pressed on time, for hygienic reasons, all you need is literally 5 minutes. If you want to meditate, you don't need to do it sitting. You can meditate while you're walking. while you're walking the stairs. While you are eating, you can put things aside and use it as a meditative pause. You don't need the time to love yourself. So a practical example, look at my manicure, I don't have any. And it's really hard to force me into a hairdresser. It's overrated. It's overrated. Put on sexy underwear, you'll feel much sexier than compared to when you have, you know, sometimes we overdo ourselves to the point when we start doubting, do I really look good? Do I look desperate? So another, since I have been a mother of small children and doing 10,000 things, another thing which might help you, it's from a different category, it's not about self-love. Engage your children in your chores. Ask them to help you. Ask them as a human being. You know, if you don't have time for everything, ask them to help you as much as they can. If they're very small, they won't be of much of help, but they'll get used to that. It will be a service to them. Because first of all, they won't be just your flatmates and you won't be just their maid. They will be engaged. Second, they will actually probably love you more for being more connected with them. You will meaningfully connect. And third, probably the most important is that you will help them to develop their executive functioning. So beauty rituals are overrated. You know, hygienic rituals don't need a lot of time. Self-love is not about time. It's about your relationship. And engage your kids as much as you can. That's my fast answer.
Thank you, Kristina. I will be reading the questions, and when you feel that we have to stop, you will stop me, okay? So the next one is from Cora, and she's asking, what daily practice would you recommend for increased self-love?
So yes, that's, you know, that's why I said that self-love is the soft skill, which is the hardest to master, because it really is about maintaining that relationship. It's like with, you know, like with your romantic partner. Of course, they suggest romantic dates and certain rituals and, you know, don't go to sleep when you're like fighting or whatever. That's not my forte. But you also understand that that relationship still essentially depends on your feelings, on your respect to this other person. So these are the things which don't depend on rituals. Now, if you did, the two rituals that I do recommend, though, are, one of them is journaling. Journaling with the focus on emotional life and your self-talk. So in the evening, if you can spend 10 minutes, just write down how your day went, what you felt, you know, especially the emotionally charged situations. Journaling really helps to process all those emotions. It crystallizes your experience. It actually gives you words to vague feelings. You might have had a stressful day, but when you start writing down, you realize you'll actually use different words. It wasn't just a stressful day. I was irritated. I was pissed. I was, you know, I was, my sense of justice was maybe in uproar. The thing is that it crystallizes your experiences, which brings more clarity to what's going on. So the second practice is introspection. So introspection plus journaling are the two practices, and underneath all of that has to be awareness. Awareness is a fundamental skill for anything in personal growth and transformation. So I'm not even spending time on awareness. You have to be aware for any of that to work. But the two rituals is introspection and journaling. Introspection is when you just look inside and you think, okay, what do I feel? How do I feel? Am I happy? You know, just ask yourself, how am I doing? And journal it. You know, psychologists say that journaling helps you process intense emotions. It's actually also going to improve your well-being and your emotional health. So these two practices, but again, they're not guarantee that your relationship with self will improve, but it's a good start. For your relationship with self to improve, you have to have 3 skills. And I have a chance to talk about my book. I talk about about those 3 skills in my book. One of them is self-honesty. And it's not as simple as it looks, by the way. The other one is kindness or compassion towards yourself. And the last one is courage. So that's on the path to self-love. But journaling and introspection are a good place to start.
Thank you, Kristina. And I have to ask this question because I am seeing that it was repeated even twice here. It's just so difficult to differentiate between self-love and being selfish. Can you please talk a little bit about this?
Not at all, not at all. I mean, yeah, it requires practice. Selfishness is when you kind of, you know, imagine it like this. If you suck love, care, and attention from outside, it's probably selfish. If you can tell yourself in the moment when you are doubting, am I being selfish? If you can tell yourself, okay, can I give what I need to myself without asking it from outside world? Then that's self-love. And I know where it comes from. You think that, if you ask your children to make their own breakfast while you're taking a shower, is that being selfish? Or is that self-care? I'll have to tell you one unpleasant news. There are no absolutes in life and personal growth as well. So the same answer or the same solution might not be useful in two different circumstances. So ultimately, the answer is within you. If you feel that you need to take time for yourself because if you don't, you're going to suffer, then probably it's not selfish. But who am I to tell you if the long shower is what you need? Or if that's just because you can't be bothered. Very often you would feel, we're just not used to talking to ourselves, but very often you would feel that if you doubt, am I being selfish? Then maybe you are. Maybe you are. We don't ask ourselves questions unless there's deep inside there's an answer for that question. Now, if you feel that that you are overworked, you are overwhelmed, then no, taking time for yourself isn't selfish. But again, you have to be the judge. I'm not the judge. But I would say that asking your kids to help is not selfish. Because if you are like a sane mother, like my kids, for example, when we had lockdown, I used to live in Malaysia and I had a lot of help in the house. But when we lived in the lockdown, kids were going to school at home and I was doing my work. And sometimes I have to do things like that. So I remember it was a few years back, I had to do an interview and the kids wanted pancakes. And I said, guys, I'm sorry, I have to do the interview. I'll come back and we'll do the pancakes. But meanwhile, could you look for a recipe in Google? So when I was done with the interview, I came back and they were already smashing eggs and doing pancakes. So I'm like, what are you guys doing? They said, pancakes, you were busy. This is not selfish. And if I needed this time to calm down my nerves because I've been stressed, it's also not selfish. Because your well-being matters. Now, any sane mother would come and help the kids if they have difficulties. I usually have to clean the kitchen after them. So you're engaged, you do things together, but you're also optimizing your relationship in a way. So the line is there. And the simple answer is that don't ask from outside what you can give to yourself. But a more complex answer is that you have to consult with your heart every single time. And yes, sometimes sleeping in is not selfish, but you have to be certain of that. You have to ask yourself, is that what I absolutely need right now? Again, we're very, on the surface level, we're touching a topic which is so deep. Again, in my book, I talk about the martyrdom complex, about how we live in a paradigm where we think that our holy duty is to sacrifice our own happiness, but very often this happiness is a very vain sacrifice. And we could talk for an hour about that. Remember what I said about my mom and her wards in orphanage. Very often what your loved one wants is not perfection, it's not a clean house, it's not a tasty dinner, it's not your beautiful face, but just your happy presence with them.
Thank you, Kristina. And maybe we'll take 2 or 1 even more questions. So I have a question from Obi here. The challenge with self-love is that I am with myself all the time. And so I see all my weaknesses. How can I push past that?
That's actually a good place because you have already made a step into that. Usually before we are ready to acknowledge our weaknesses, unless we are completely mean with ourselves, we have to learn to be clear and honest with ourselves, so that we can actually see this is me, not that aspirational version that I pretend that I am, but this is actually me. Now, in my teachings, I like to call those what you called weaknesses. I like to call them dragons. because sometimes it's weaknesses, sometimes it's our past traumas, it's some kind of patterns that we run on. We all have those parts of ourselves which don't fit the picture of perfection. And because we don't know how to deal with them, what we do is that we sweep them under the rug, or we push them into the darkest corner, because that's just the way our psyche is built. If we face the reality which we don't enjoy, which hurts us, we usually start distorting our perception of that reality so that that reality is more palatable. So it's really hard to truly clearly see the things which you called weaknesses, or I call dragons. I prefer dragons because weaknesses have this connotation of something inherently really bad. Dragons are tricky things. They can be pets or they can be pests. So we all have dragons. All of us have dragons. And some of us are just naggy and self-critical, and that has nothing to do with their honesty with themselves and with them knowing their dragons. Knowing your dragon is when you actually recognize that this is my intrinsic part. And very often people ask me, how do I know what is being me and what is bad habit? There is a difference, you know. Bad habits you can eradicate. If you smoke, you can give up smoking. I watch myself on video a lot. I very often notice bad habits in my speech, in the way I, my posture. These are bad habits. These are retrainable. But then there are parts of me which are inherent. So I said I'm a perfectionist, and I'm using as an example a very simple weakness or dragon. It's we usually don't judge perfectionists because most of us are, but let's say I'm a perfectionist. I've been perfectionist all my life, and perfectionism can be debilitating. It can actually prevent you from, first of all, from accomplishing tasks, from taking tasks, from challenging yourself, from competing. I'm very bad sport. I don't like competing because I'm perfectionist. So of course it is a weakness if you take it this way. Now, at some point, I heard this phrase, I'm recovering perfectionist, and I was enamored with this phrase, and I called myself a recovering perfectionist until I realized that I cannot recover from being me. You see, there are bad habits and there are intrinsic qualities about yourself. So for someone, perfectionism may be a bad habit. In my case, it's my inherent intrinsic quality, which just makes me me. I can't eradicate it. I can't train myself out of it. I can't, I can't slay this dragon. And slaying this dragon is actually going to create more troubles. So what you do with your weaknesses is that you look them in the eye, you acknowledge that they are there, and you acknowledge that they're there. You actually find gratitude in your heart, because whatever you are, whatever qualities that you maybe don't want to accept about yourself, or your past, or your traumas, they have made you what you are right now. They have brought you to this point. Can you feel the gratitude for that? And then look at that dragon in the eye and say, I have space for you in my heart. Can we be friends? Can I befriend you? Can I tame you? So rather than eradicating my perfectionism, I just accept that I have it and I learn to live with it. Can I turn my curse into my blessing? Because there are positive things about perfectionism. You know, I have a high bar. I am ambitious because of that. So can I live with that weakness, with that dragon? That's the question, not how can I get rid of that? How can I be at peace with that? But that's high pilotage of self-love. And again, that would require a little longer to go deeper. But that's a short answer to that. And to leave it at not a soft weakness like perfectionism. I have other weaknesses. I'm very lazy naturally. I know my marketers are going to slay me for saying that, but that's true. You know, I'm always in my head, something that in our industry people hate. They're like, get back into your body. No, I'm in my head. It's a weakness, but it's also my strength. It's also what makes me me. It also what gives me my unique value. I was born in Soviet Union. I have a weird accent. Some people have left the room because they can't stand my accent. But that history has made me what I am. Can I turn this curse into my blessing? That's the question. I do not know if I've answered or I've gone on a rant again.
Thank you, Kristina. Thank you so much for this. How did you like, guys, the workshop? I believe that we have to finish soon, but please write in the chat, what was your biggest takeaway that you had from this workshop? I would like to read your answers. And while we are writing, we also would like to say, so if you like this workshop and you would like to dive deeper into Kristina's programs and programs of other Mindvalley authors, we have some small or big, quite big gift for you. It's a Valentine's gift. We have the special discount for those of you who are not Mindvalley members, so you can purchase Mindvalley membership with a special discount. We are putting the link in the chat. I will put it right now. So yes, please, you can go, you can explore other programs that Kristina has. And I believe that, Chris, you have the programs on self-love as well, right?
So I'll have to explain that part. So as a co-founder of Mindvalley, please join membership. It's really worth it. And, you know, this is the last workshop. So I believe that the link, the special discount is not going to last very long. So do that. Now, when it comes to my programs, I have 2 of my older programs on membership. There are a lot of programs by amazing authors. The authors that I just mentioned, Shefali, Marissa, the other authors who were speaking in these workshops, they're all there. Their programs are there. My programs, it's 2 of my older programs, 7 Days to Happiness and Live by Your Rules. I have 2 newer programs. One of them is not out, but the program on self-love, it only comes as a bonus with my book. So it's not on membership. So I just had to say that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kristina, for staying with us today. So once again, the links are in the chat. You will all get the email with the recording of this call at the end, like after this call in 48 hours approximately. So wait for that. Thank you, Chris, for your time. Thank you for answering all these questions. It was super helpful even for me. And I can see that for a lot of people, there were a lot of insights. So thank you and happy Love Week, everyone.
By the way, before we finish, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank Marta. I want to thank everyone who joined and who took part so actively. Thank you guys for taking the time and actually coming and participating. And I also want to thank people that you guys don't see. There's a whole team here, was there, and I don't know actually who else is there because it's the team name, but everybody who was there, if you guys can leave a heart for them in the chat, because they have been doing that for all these days, and for some of them it's middle of the night. So yeah, and for everyone who is not right now here but who has made this whole event happen, because that's the last workshop. And yes, thank you guys for the hearts. See you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Record